to have a day off on the weekend? Or you get anything? Is it any extra advantage to having a day off?
It was good for the players. With kind of going back to Louisiana Tech, we had that rainout game Wednesday, then traveled to Florida, followed up with a Tuesday, and then a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So for me, every day is the same, but I think it was probably good for the players.
Is there a message? Get away, get off of everything.
I think academically it's hard or it's challenging on any college baseball player right now. So the message was to use that time to try to get back to square one, especially with traveling the next couple weekends. And this week's a unique week where we're going to travel on Wednesday after practice. Since we're busing, we're not charter flying, we're busing. So we'll practice here and then bus on Wednesday. So when you travel, that can't be an off day. So they get a little bit of a 2-day period here where everything they're doing on their today is on their own.
Upon further reflection from this weekend, what are some takeaways that you think this team needs to improve on moving forward to Mississippi State this week?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's each phase of the game, I think, and they're relatively obvious. I think the pitchers, as I said Saturday, did a good enough job for us to win. There was some inopportune free bases, walks that came to hurt us on Sunday. Came at bad times, put us in some pitcher-hitter matchups that weren't the ones we were kind of going for, in the inning. 2 runs, specifically scored on walks where we ended up having to pitch to the guy maybe we didn't want to pitch to or had to pitch to him in a certain way because there was an additional runner on base. But, hey, like I said, they did well enough for us to compete and to win. So just that attack in the zone, which they've done a pretty good job of, Defensively, I thought we were better for 7 innings on Saturday. We made an error late in that game, Friday. We were able to overcome that when Eric came in and got the strikeout. And so good teams do. They'll play through mistakes, and we played through mistakes well on Friday, and that was a large reason why we won that game. Saturday kind of had the feeling until the end like we were getting beat. You know what I mean? They took a couple more good at-bats. DeChera hit the home run. We played a relatively clean game in the field, but then again, it reared its head. We made an error. I believe it was to start off the 7th, and then the miscommunication play between Cade and Jordan was a tough one. That's going to happen. We don't have, we're not a major league team on defense by any stretch of the imagination. I think I would like to see us play through mistakes better. How do you do that? Then you turn it over to offensively, and we were just one at bat away. It's one of the more frustrating games offensively of the year for me. We had a very good plan, I thought, very specific of what we tried to do against Gonzalez, and it was kind of like we'd get 2 good at bats, and we just couldn't get that third one in a row. And credit him, and then Skipper came in and got a big strikeout of Joe Bear, and then Burkhalter pitched really well. It's a really good closer. So I think just continue to grind on the toughness of the at-bats when we're not getting hits. The one positive offensively you look at is in 9 SEC games, only 2 pitchers have gotten into the 6th inning against us, so we're forcing people to use their bullpen. But if you take that to one more step where you get that one more good at-bat, you can start to put more pressure on the opponent, as I've talked about, where it forces them into some more stressful at-bats, and that can in turn help our pitching staff. So I think it's a complementary baseball piece that we're still trying to learn and trying to get more consistent at.
It seems like you made a couple changes, very minor changes to the lineup, kind of switching Jordan and Braden and putting Gio down last, and then putting then substituting Josh Pearson in the last day. When you're unable to cash in on some of those runs, do you go back to the drawing board on the lineup? What's your strategy? How do you view that?
Well, again, I don't know where we rank nationally in anything. It doesn't really matter. But, we're exactly halfway through the season, I think. And then we're hitting over 300 as a team. We've played 11 quad 1 games. So I think the production part, I think, has been fine. I think if it comes a little more, when it comes timely, we win games that are important at Florida, the second game against Auburn. When it's not, you find yourself in a tough spot. That's why setting that correctly is super important, and there's a give and take with everything that you do. I mean, I played Josh because I thought he was a good matchup for Gonzalez, and he walked and he got a hit, and I was happy to see him up with the bases loaded late in that game. That was a good at bat was against Burkhalter, and I think he's going to be a really good player here. So that one had to do with that day and who we were going relative to Jordan, Braden, who hits in front, who hits behind. That's based on the matchup piece, and I thought the advantage we were going for was to get Jacob and Braden up for sure one more time against Gonzalez, and there was one point in the game where the left-hand hitters had all of our hits. But then what it did is the trade-off is, were they going to go to Skipper? Well, he had 49 pitches on Friday, and they hadn't doubled him up in a weekend yet, but he came in and he was essentially in there for Jacob, and Jacob got a hit off of him, and then for Braden, and he got that big strikeout, and then allowed them to go to Burkhalter for, I think Gavin was up next. It's not perfect. I try to do the right left thing as best we can, but it's a give and take with all of it.
Talk about playing through mistakes. What does that look like to you?
Somebody makes an error, a pitcher comes up and makes a great pitch to get us out of the jam. A pitcher maybe walks a guy or hits a guy, somebody makes a great play in the field. The guy strikes out in a situational hitting, the next guy comes up, takes a tough at bat, and hits one hard and low and gets him in. And then just kind of keep playing. There's been a couple innings in that series that, even still, if we get up off the mat and you're still right there. So it's just not letting any of the in-game failures become fatal or carry over to where they affect the next performance. Baseball is going to be decided on 6 or 7 pitches throughout the game. You don't always know when they're coming. It's usually when runners on base. But if you can win those 6 or 7, then you have a chance to win. So you can't let the previous pitch get in the way of those when they're right on the edge of showing up. So it's just mental toughness. It's growing up. It's maturity. And, we got to keep going in that regard.
Do you really see it as a ledger type thing, like a plus-minus type deal?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You did just kind of mention it, but Thursday night after the game, you said playing through the mistake, right, because there was the 6-run inning or whatever. Mm-hmm. You guys did that the very next night. There was the 2 runs instead of 6 when things were kind of
absolutely. Made an error, and then we had a pass ball that put the go-ahead run on scoring position. And Eric came in and struck the guy out, and then we came up to the plate and scored 5 runs. And, the opponent has something to do with that. They had to go to their 2 guys on Thursday, and so they weren't really available for the game on Friday, so that helps. But that's where, playing every pitch and being engaged and making it competitive and tough is really important because, game 1 is going to affect game 3. There's no question about that. So how you line things up like that is really important. But, even when, and it helped us at Florida. We were down facing a tough pitcher in Barco, but we got an extended outing out of Bryce Collins, which allowed us to have the bullpen fresh for Saturday and Sunday. So everything counts. That's something that Coach Bertman used to say, and it is so true in baseball.
With it being halfway through the season, can you give us kind of like an overall progress report?
I'm really into looking forward as opposed to looking back. If you feel like, if you say, hey, are we where we should be? I don't know. I think we won a couple close games. We've lost a few close games. I think I could say there's maybe 1 or 2 on the table that I'd like to have. I think either one of these games this past weekend, the Baylor game I've mentioned before. So we're right around there. I think the positive in that is we haven't played our best baseball. New system, new approach, new process. So we got to keep growing, through that and try to set a good foundation here as we're trying to win games. I got a chance to watch a number of games yesterday, and there's some commonalities in things that separate winning and losing, and even with some of the best teams in the country that have kind of reared their head in some of our struggles. So I think the effort is good. I think they want to be good. I think a lot of it has to do with just the pure play. I think if you ask me, pitching-wise, pretty pleased with what those guys have done to this juncture. I don't know what their numbers were at this point. I think they're giving us a chance to win. I think, the infield play obviously is what it is at this point. Keep working, keep trying some new things, keep coaching them up in practice, keep recruiting better. I think offensively, I think it's good. I don't think it's been great, but I have a really high bar. I had one of the best offensive teams in college baseball history last year. The last 2 years actually that I'm matching that up against. I think we have good players. I think the competition's been good, and so good pitching is going to beat good hitting. So it's important that our pitchers stay sharp. It's important that the defense stays sharp, and it's important that we improve offensively. And at times it's been there, but we'll just keep going. I think the important thing to remember, and if there was a messaging, it's like, hey, we really wanted to win on Saturday. Those players wanted to win, and it's a gut punch. You want to win 2 out of 3, obviously, but that game doesn't change anything about where we want to go unless we let it. And I've talked to several coaches, before I ever even thought about coming here, about the challenge of coaching in this league and the steadiness of your team and mindset is so important. And we have to get there. And I've told you guys we have some work to do in getting there with our players, but I hope you'll see some of that maturity, manifest itself these next couple of weeks as we go on the road.
What's the personality of this team right now?
I think they're still learning, a little bit. I don't have like hey, this is what I think we are. I do think they care. Like anybody that thinks they don't care, they're out of their minds. I do think they want to be good. I think we're in a process of getting that, hey, we're going to get over the hump and win attitude, through. And that comes back to baseball and playing baseball well. Some of it is maybe ability. Some of it is mindset. Some of it is additional work. We're going to try to improve all of those things. So I know they want to be good. I know they care about being good. I know they want to win. They're invested. There's no issues there. We've got to play better.
Looking forward to Grambling and Mississippi State. Any scouting reports on both those teams? Or?
Well, Grambling scored a lot of runs this weekend and swept their series. It's a game that I know Coach Maneri scheduled a couple of years ago. I don't think they played a lot, and I could be wrong on this, but he had mentioned something to me about, we were going to make it a yearly game now, which I think is great. Davin Pierre is their new coach, and they'll be excited to get here and play. I mean, just looking at, they have some good hitters with some good statistics and good numbers. I don't know how much they did or didn't use their pitching this weekend. Probably not very much because they scored a lot of runs and had good separation in their scores. Mississippi State, obviously, defending national champions, talented team. I watched most of that game live yesterday against Arkansas, being that's most of our opponents. Good starting pitcher for the third game of the series. Good guys brought out of the bullpen. Now they lost the first 2, so maybe they didn't use those guys. So again, that's where playing well early is important. To get those guys in the game, or get our better guys in the game. They obviously competed well, won a 12-inning game on the road against, a team that hasn't, I saw something that they hadn't lost a home series in like 27 series or something like that. So to get one win at that place in an extra inning game, credit to them. So there's no shortage of talent there. I mean, there's enough guys back that won a national championship on both the mound and at the plate that, I don't know their roster well enough as far as age to where, it's a process. And what I mean by that is, in our league, you're going to get challenged and exposed every weekend of the things you need to do better. And if you don't do them better, you're going to lose. And so outside of Tennessee and Arkansas and maybe Georgia, to this point, everybody's going through some of that.
This is a broad theoretical question, but do you feel like maybe your guys are too passive, or are they trying to force the issue?
In terms of which part of the game?
I can kind of think of it all over. Like, defensively, maybe they're not making the plays, and that lets bad luck come into play. At the plate, maybe not staying locked in and focusing like you want them to do.
Well, again, everything's new. You know what I mean? And with that being said, competitive and aggressive and attacking mindset players are what you want. And at times, you can really, really see that. I think differentiating, is that an issue, or sometimes does the pitcher win by executing the pitch? I think I look at it a little bit more in that context. I think, the Louisiana Tech game, that was a tough loss a couple weeks ago, kind of keep going back to that one. I would say there was some passiveness that resulted in maybe some at-bats that could have been taken better. I don't think that was the case, this weekend. I mean, Braden struck out in that one at-bat, but he took a great swing and just fouled one off. We're off the same guy on Thursday night. He hit the home run, So, like I said, I think there's been some improvement. It's hard to see when you just look at, hey, you lost 2 out of 3. Again, if I'm asking them to be steady, it's important of our staff to be steady and address the issues. I mean, we met for 2 hours this morning on, lining up the pitching, and making adjustments with, the lineup personnel. And I'm not afraid to do things differently. I mean, we've done a little bit of that so far, and so want to put them in the best position to be successful because the margin is really small. And so we've got to keep going on that. And collectively, as a staff and as players, we'll do that.
The pitching rotation was actually the same for the second week in a row, with Blake starting, say, Friday, it was Thursday, and then Mikhail, and then Sam. Is that something you think you're sticking with, or?
I don't know just yet. We're going to look. We looked at that and talked about it. I think it's interesting because what you do this weekend will affect the next 2, because we go Thursday to Saturday the next 2 weekends. And so I think we'll probably be a little more patient with deciding on that this weekend, because you kind of inadvertently lock yourself into it, because it's okay to bump a guy up a day. It's really hard to bump him up 2 days. We brought in Grant on Friday, which was essentially 4 days rest because he pitched Sunday the last week. And so we were only able to get an inning and a third out of him. So you want to be careful about that. So we haven't made a decision on that. We talked through it extensively this morning. Again, I'll look at Mississippi State. How can we set it up as far as the bullpen, to be successful, and where can we get length out of the guys? What days is that important to do that? And then make a decision on that.
Any updates on Alex Milazzo?
He was on the active roster this weekend. Thought Hayden played well, so we wanted to kind of ride that. I certainly would like to get Alex back in there. He told Coach Fitzgerald he was sore on Saturday. I'm not sure why he was sore, because he hadn't played, but it's it's a tough injury, and squatting and bending and all that stuff. So was going to get him in there Sunday, but he didn't feel great. But I'm hopeful that we can get him in soon.
Thank you.
Okay, Coach.
Thanks,
Have a
Coach.
good day.